Hi there, it's so nice to meet you. My name is Ricky Koo, and we will be spending the next 30 minutes or so together talking about a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. We'll be talking a little bit more about how to use data to negotiate and influence people to get to the outcomes that you want. And this is perfect, especially for people that may be in more technical roles or maybe more data driven, or even if you're just very detail oriented. This is the perfect topic for you so that you can come away feeling more confident in effectively negotiating and influencing people to get what you want. So let's get right into it. Our focus will be shifting away from the spreadsheets and the tables and the data. The goal is not to completely do away with data and numbers, but it's to move a little bit away from that. I know it sounds a bit counterintuitive, especially for people who may be in technical roles or used to being in the details. But what's more important is if you focus more of your energy on building trust and making sure that you have that influence over the audience that you're working with so that you can properly negotiate and influence them into making better decisions, whether it's for the team or for the company. As I mentioned, my name is Ricky Koo. I have years of experience across Fortune 500 companies, and I've worked across many different industries, including banking, consulting, and tech. My background is actually in psychology. I studied psychology. So, talking to me, working with me, you'll come to find that I tend to have a really, really interesting balance between highly technical and highly humanistic. And I combine the two when it comes to any conversation that I have, especially when I'm delivering sessions like this or when I'm talking to clients during my private one-on-one coaching sessions. Aside from being a CPA and working in corporate finance, I also own my own coaching business. So I'm a certified leadership and communication coach. And I also am an instructor with UC Berkeley Extension as part of their leadership and management program. My specialties are authentic leadership development, impactful communication, self-branding, self-advocacy, and also influencing and negotiation, which is what we'll be touching on today. My core values are authenticity, trust, kindness, health, and purpose. And this might make more sense if you listen to one of my other workshops around core values and how you can leverage that in your career growth. As I mentioned, I've worked in finance my entire career, and I'm a leadership and communication coach. I offer private one-on-one coaching sessions, as well as group facilitations and running workshops. And I teach as well, specific to topics around leadership, communication, and self-advocacy. On top of all of that, and probably most important, is I am a full-time dog dad as well. I'm a husband, uncle, brother, speaker, writer, and it's very nice to be here. So let's dive right in. Today, we'll be talking about negotiation a little bit more and how it shows up in our day-to-day lives. We'll also be talking specifically about some blind spots that may show up, especially if you tend to be more detail-oriented or more technical or data-driven. We'll then shift to a little bit about why this matters, the psychology behind influence and negotiation, because influence and negotiation really go hand in hand. And then we'll transition to going through a framework that I've developed to help you be much more confident and effective in being able to negotiate and show up and present using data and influence people to drive to an outcome that you want. And then lastly, we'll talk about what you can do to start practicing this today and applying it into your real life. So let's start with talking about negotiation and how it shows up. We are constantly negotiating every single day, almost every single minute. If you're not doing it in your mind, you're doing it with someone else around you. Some examples of this would be if you're sitting in traffic, if you're driving to work, if you're driving home from work, you're constantly negotiating and communicating with the other drivers as you're navigating through traffic, as you're trying to figure out which direction they're trying to go. Maybe at home you have children or pets, and you are constantly negotiating with them as well. You're trying to understand what their interests are. They're trying to understand how far they can push you. They're trying to understand what they can get away with. That is a form of negotiation through communication. And then lastly, maybe you are a coffee drinker or a tea drinker like myself, and you go to a coffee or tea shop and you order, but maybe they're out of that day. That's a form of negotiation. You have to pivot. You have to then make trade-offs and you have to figure out, is this something that I still want today, right now? These are all forms of negotiation. And the reason why I bring this up is because whenever I talk about negotiation and I use that word, sometimes people can feel a little bit intimidated, or they can think automatically about salary negotiations or envision themselves sitting in a big boardroom negotiating a big business deal. That, although can be the case sometimes, isn't always the case when it comes to negotiation. Negotiation is just a form of communication that we go through every single day. So you have a lot of practice already with negotiation. And the main goal from today's conversation is really to allow you to practice that more by sharing this framework with you so that you can come away with this session in just 30 minutes and be more confident with knowing how to handle different situations and using data to be a better negotiator and influencer. So let's talk specifically about finance professionals. Let's say you are a director in corporate FP&A, and maybe you're experiencing that you have a lot of data and budget consolidations, but people often say that they feel lost whenever you're talking through the numbers with them or whenever you're presenting. Or maybe let's say you're an analyst, part of the strategic finance team, and maybe you are thinking, I immediately get so many questions as soon as I open up and show a table in my presentation. Or maybe you're a senior manager as part of the systems and operations team. And people tend to say that you're not that connected. You're not as connected as you should be to what's really going on in the broader business. Maybe you're even a VP, part of the go-to-market finance team. Maybe you say you pride yourself on being so accurate and you always hit your numbers. But when you make proposals and when you share your ideas to stakeholders and other people, they seem a bit skeptical. So some of this may sound familiar to you because these are all real life situations that a lot of finance professionals and even people outside of finance face day in and day out. Now, what this really stems from are these common things that come up. The first is just a reminder for us, facts don't persuade people. As much as we like facts, especially if we're working in technical roles, facts do not persuade people. Stories do. Stories influence people, and framing persuades people. The second reminder is data only becomes powerful when it's connected to their decision. Their being the key word here. Their meaning your audience, whoever you're talking to. If your data doesn't resonate with them or it doesn't connect to what their interests are, it will mean nothing. You can have all the data in the world and it will mean nothing to them. The third reminder is when you translate the numbers into what leaders actually care about, that's when they're actually motivated to make decisions. Otherwise, they're just going to sit back, maybe zone out, maybe think about what they want to eat for lunch or dinner later. They're not really going to care until they know that what you're saying and the data that you're showing relates back to them. And then lastly, when people feel understood, that's when they become open to being persuaded. If people don't feel understood by you, if they don't feel like you understand them and you see them as an individual for what their interests are, they're not going to listen fully. There's going to be an automatic wall up. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, about the psychology behind what that means and how we can move past it. So first, let's ground ourselves on some definitions. I've used two words very frequently already, negotiation and influence. So my definition of what a negotiation is it's simply a communication process to reach an agreement with others through assessing interests, options, and trade-offs. Now let's shift to influence because I mentioned earlier, influence and negotiation have to go hand in hand in order to reach an agreement in the end. So the definition of influence is the ability to shape or change how people interpret information and ultimately how they think, feel, or act. If you're sharing information with someone, whether that is sharing a table or sharing a summary or sharing a big PowerPoint presentation, there has to be a purpose behind what it is. The purpose usually has to be either changing how someone thinks, changing how someone feels, or changing how they act, how you want them to behave afterwards. That is a form of influence. And when we talk about the psychology behind the two, There is a correlation and there are dependencies between the two. Negotiation drives influence. When you're negotiating and when you are effectively doing it, when you're effective at communicating with the other person, that is when you can have influence over them. For example, if you use the framework, which I'll be covering in just a moment, to take you through step by step how you can properly negotiate and be very confident and effective at it, that's when you can have influence over someone. And that's what drives someone to think, feel, and do things differently. The second psychological thing that I want to call out here is that there are two gates that you have to pass until you get to an agreement, until you get to properly influencing someone to do something or think about something or to feel about something in a certain way. You have to pass these two psychological gates. The first one is trust. You have to establish some form of trust with the person you're talking to. It can be something very simple, or it can be something that takes weeks and months to build trust, depending on who it is, and also depends on what's at stake. If there's higher risk, usually it takes longer to build that trust, and it's not just a one and done kind of situation. So the first psychological gate you have to get past in order to even properly negotiate and influence is trust. The second gate is with them. You may have heard of this acronym. It stands for What's in it for me. You have to think on behalf of the person you're trying to talk to and you're trying to influence. If someone doesn't feel as though you have their best interest in mind, or if someone doesn't feel as though you truly understand what they want, what they need, what they fear, they're not going to fully listen to what you have to say. And they're definitely not going to be inclined to do something differently or to offer up more information for you if that's what you need. So you have to get past the first gate, which is trust, and you have to get past the second gate, which is what's in it for me, in order to ultimately reach an agreement that is beneficial for both sides. Now let's dive into this framework that I've been mentioning. So this framework is very easy. It's designed to help you be more effective and confident in negotiating and influencing someone. It's just 3 steps, so it should be very easy for you to remember. The first step is to acknowledge. The second step is to involve. And the third is to map. And it spells out AIM because we love acronyms. Easy to remember. So let's go through this one by one. The first step is acknowledge. This is where you have to name the pressure. You have to name what's at stake that the person you're talking to is experiencing. This isn't about you. And the reason why at the top there you'll see it says them above acknowledge is because this is all about them. It's about the person you're talking to, maybe the group that you're talking to, if it's a group of people. It's not about you. You have to be able to understand what the pressure is that they are feeling, maybe what their fear is, what their concerns are. You have to validate their emotions. And just a reminder, you can still validate someone's emotions without necessarily agreeing with them. In this step, it is crucial for you to signal partnership, to signal to them that you see them, that you hear them, that you understand them. This is where you build that trust. This is how you can move past that first psychological gate. So you can say something like, my goal is to help you make the cleanest and most beneficial decision. Of course, you can add in other contexts and things like that, but in a nutshell, this step is aimed to build that trust and to help reinforce that trust as you move forward into the other steps. The second step would be to involve. This turns the them into we. So now you enter into the conversation and you involve not just yourself, but them in this negotiation or in this decision-making process, whatever you're trying to get to. You always start this step with a question. Before you show any data, before you show any kind of facts, you have to establish that this is a we problem. This is a joint problem-solving opportunity for us to work together. Because people will not be committed to something unless they feel they have a stake in it, unless they feel they are actually involved in a part of it. So it's very important in this step for you to not start with the data, but start with the question. Seek an outcome. Seek to understand where they're coming from, maybe to reinforce a little bit of what you might have thought from the first step around what their interests might be or what their concerns might be. You might ask something like, if we had to choose one most important thing to you about this, what would that be? This is an opportunity for you to collect some data, for you to ask a question, be curious, and to better understand what their point of view is so that you can involve them in this negotiation and you can involve them in this conversation, which then pivots into the last step, map. The last step is once you've established the trust with them, once you've involved them in this conversations, you've hooked them, you've made it clear to them why it is that they're sitting here listening to you. You've made it abundantly clear to them why it is that they should be invested in this because it's in their best interest, how it relates back to them. You then map it out for them. You show them 1 to 3 paths or options to move forward. You leverage the trust that you've built and also the interests that you've identified, maybe what their concern is, what their fear is. You leverage that to be able to move forward towards an agreement. You reinforce the benefit that they will gain by working with you. That can sound something like, given the importance of blank to you, this can address that concern and help us move forward. And then you can share the 1 to 3 options. This is also the time where you can introduce some of the data. After you've asked questions in the involved step, this is where you can say, because this is so important to you, I want to show you this. Then you can pivot into, here are some options of how we can move forward. So the progression through this 3-step process and this AIM framework is very natural. It mimics how human brains work and how we think and how we process information. So we shift from acknowledging someone, building that trust, naming what it is that they probably are feeling that might be uncomfortable or that they're fearful of. Then we shift to involving them into this conversation, pulling them in so that they really deeply listen to what you have to say. Then you map out some of the data, some of the evidence, and you map out some options for them to say, this is how we can go forward together. This is an us problem. We can do this together. That's the main goal of what we want in any negotiation. So as long as you follow this 3-step process that I've developed for you through any presentation or negotiation that you have in the workplace or even in your personal life, it will be very difficult for you to feel lost. And remember, the order of this matters because, again, this is mirroring how our brains work and how we think and how we process information. So you have to first acknowledge, build that trust, then go to the involve, and then you end with the map. If you don't build that trust and acknowledge up front, you're not going to be able to unlock that map and you're not going to be able to get to that ultimate agreement that you're looking for. So I know that was a lot of information and this is a new framework, but the good thing is it's only 3 steps. So you can definitely remember this and start practicing this in your daily life. That felt probably like it went very, very fast, and it did. Because usually when I run through a workshop around negotiation and influence like this, we go through 2 hours and we have some role playing, we have some time in between to really run through an example going through these 3 steps. Unfortunately, today in the 30 minutes, we don't have the time to do that. But that's not to say you can't reach out to me afterwards and we can spend more time together. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. I'm always very excited when people take the information and knowledge that I share and they take it and apply it into their real life, into their work. And I love hearing success stories about it. So feel free to reach out to me. Don't be shy in emailing me any questions that you have because I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you be more confident and more successful in being able to use data to negotiate and to influence people to get to the agreements that you want. Lastly, here are some key takeaways from everything we've talked about. If anything, make sure you absorb these key takeaways, maybe take a screenshot of it, share it with your team members, whatever it is, print it out if you want, put it at your desk. But these are important reminders whenever you have the opportunity to use data to try to negotiate or to influence or to drive some kind of decision in your day-to-day work. Number one is pushback is data. It's not just respect. I'm sure you've experienced a situation where you've encountered some pushback, whether it's from stakeholders or peers or your manager, whoever you're talking to. Take that as data. Don't take it personally as an attack because any pushback from someone really is coming from a place of concern and worry and fear. So going back to that first step of acknowledging, you really want to be able to understand what it is that your audience cares about, what it is that they're concerned about. So sometimes when people push back right away, or maybe they are very aggressive in how they're pushing back with whatever you're trying to tell them, that is coming from a place of, I don't understand what this is, or it's coming from a place of, I've experienced this before and it didn't end well. That is all data for you so that you can better understand them and then move into the next step when you involve them into the discussion. The second takeaway is following the AIM framework. Remember that following this framework will lead to faster decisions, less defensiveness, and more alignment with yourself, with your stakeholders, so that you are crystal clear in any presentation or negotiation that you're entering in. The third takeaway is if they don't feel it, they won't hear it. This is coming from my psychology background again, and it rings loud and clear regardless of what industry you're in, regardless of what role you're in, or how many years of experience you have. If you don't make someone feel something, they're not going to hear it. They're not going to listen. If you don't acknowledge the person you're talking to and show them that you truly understand what it is that they care about and that you truly understand what their concerns are, it's going to be very, very difficult to get through to them. It's going to be even more difficult to try to convince them to think about something differently, to feel something differently, or to do something differently. And then the fourth takeaway is to practice this framework. Take this framework. I will be sharing a QR code in the next slide where you can get access to this worksheet so that you can download it and start applying it into your work, into your life. If there's something coming up, maybe that you're trying to convince someone of something, or maybe you're putting together a presentation, try to use this AIM framework. Make sure that you are following the steps so that you can ultimately reach the agreement and outcome that you want. The AIM framework walks you through those different steps, but the key is just to remember that trust is the door. The data is only the information that you bring through that door. Ultimately, it takes influence. Influence is what guides you toward that agreement. Without all three of these, it will not be a success. So you have to build the trust, you have to have the right data, you have to have the right framing, and you have to have the right influence over people. So that is what I have for you today. I know that time went by so quickly, but as I mentioned, on the right here, there is a QR code. You can scan this and sign up for the newsletter that I run, which is called Above the Radar, and you will be sent this free AIM worksheet so that you can download it and start sharing with coworkers or other people that you work with. Also, so that you can stay up to date on any future resources that I have. I run these workshops on various different topics, and I always have worksheets afterwards to accompany them because you can sit through any presentation and maybe take away a lot of great learnings, but if you don't apply it into your real life, then it doesn't really mean anything. You have to give it life. You have to give it your own spark. You have to give it your own unique take on it. So, with whatever you learned today, make sure that you start applying it and practicing it. And lastly, please keep in touch. There's a QR code on the upper left there. You can scan that, and that will take you to all of my contact information if you want to keep in touch. Add me on LinkedIn. Please, building your network is just as important as building your career. So make sure that you don't be shy. Even if we haven't met in person yet, I look forward to meeting you in person someday. Find me on LinkedIn, add me to your network, maybe even send me a message. You can find me on Instagram as well. I'm on social media, and I post a lot of tips on career development, leadership skills, communication skills. And lastly, if you have any specific questions for me at all, whether it's about the topic today or anything else that you're interested in with coaching or facilitation or workshops for your teams in the future, please feel free to reach out to me. Email me at coach@rickyku.com. And if you want more information on my background, if you want to read some articles on my blog, feel free to check out my website, rickyku.com as well. It was such a pleasure being here with you today, and I look forward to hearing some success stories as you start practicing this AIM framework and as you start practicing not just using your data and your technical skills, but also leveraging the psychology behind how you can negotiate and influence people. Take care, have a great day, and I look forward to hearing from you and connecting with you.